Hey, what's up guys, Clan here. So for today, we're gonna talk about another upcoming exciting archetype for EX01, an Imperialdramon deck. As of recording this video, we are just a few days away before EX01 is officially released, and I have been testing a lot of decks for the EX01 meta, and I think there are a lot of interesting cards that have been added for the Imperialdramon deck. Imperialdramon was actually a tier 1 deck back on the BTO3 days, but as more sets have been released, it slightly fell down to tier 1.5 to tier 2. But with the EX01 release, we have tons of supports that was printed for the Imperialdramon archetype. That's why I'm really excited on making this video. Okay, so let's start off with our Digitama. We have the 4 copies of the BTO3 Demi Vmon. We haven't changed our Digitama because I think that extra draw from Demi Vmon, if your Digimon has jamming and is attacking, is a really good effect, just in case you need to draw more cards so that your Digivolution line would be consistent. So Demi Vmon will be the best Digitama for your Imperialdramon build. Moving on to our rookies, first we have the 4 copies of the BTO3 Vmon. So the BTO3 Vmon is simply, it has jamming. You can attack early on the game without him getting deleted. And having jamming on this Vmon gives you the draw if you have the Demi Vmon on your ESS. Next on our rookie list, we have the 4 copies of the new Vmon from EX01. So this is a new card, and this Vmon's effect is its ESS is once per turn. If our Digimon gets unsuspended during the main phase, we get +1 memory. So there are tons of ways to restand our Digimon during our main phase with your Imperialdramon decks, because you have cards like EX01, Imperialdramon, even some new cards from EX01, which we will discuss later on the game, gives you that restand effect so that you can maximize the +1 memory of this Vmon. Okay, moving on to our next rookie, we have 3 copies of the vanilla Digimon Gomamon. So we've included Gomamon just because sometimes we wanna memory choke our opponent. So if our opponent gives us 2, we hard play Gomamon, and in return we give him 2 memory. So Gomamon is a really good card in case you wanna just memory starve your opponent. Okay, speaking of memory starving, we have the 2 copies of Modoki Betamon. So Modoki Betamon is a really good card against tons of archetypes. Like for example, all blue decks actually use Hammer Spark, so having Modoki Betamon is a really good memory stopper against those blue decks, as well as every deck which uses the memory boost. Modoki Betamon just straightly shut down those card effects. So having a couple of copies of Modoki Betamon wouldn't hurt, just in case you wanna memory choke your opponent. Okay, now we're moving on to our level 4s. We have the 4 copies of X-Vmon. So the X-Vmon from BTO3 is a staple even on the former Imperialdramon decks, because what he does is whenever we Digivolve into X-Vmon, we can restand our Digimon. So X-Vmon can easily combo out with your jamming Vmon, because your Vmon has jamming and it wouldn't get destroyed on your opponent's security check. So after attacking, we Digivolve into X-Vmon, and suddenly our Digimon restands again. Next on our level 4 list, we have the new copies of Stingmon from EX01. So let's see what this card does. First is its static effect is piercing. So it's a green card. Basically most green cards have piercing, and its ESS is if this Digimon has Imperialdramon on its name or free on its attribute, this Digimon gains piercing. So this only means that not only your blue Imperialdramon gets piercing, as well as your Pilgrimon also gains piercing. So just in case you have the BTO3 Imperialdramon Digivolve into, you Digivolve your EX01 Stingmon into your BTO3 Imperialdramon, your Imperialdramon gets jamming and piercing at the same time. So I really like this card, because before we had to include we had to include the green variant of the BTO3 Imperialdramon just to have that piercing effect. But now even the blue Imperialdramon will have piercing effect because of the ESS ability of this Stingmon. Okay, now we're moving on to our next level 4s. We have the 3 copies of the new Vmon from EX01. I mean, the new X Vmon from EX01. So this X Vmon, what he does is, it's actually kind of the same with the Stingmon from EX01, but the difference is instead of piercing, he gives jamming. So his static effect is jamming, and his inheritable skill is if our Digimon contains Imperialdramon on its name or has 3 on its characteristics, this Digimon gains jamming. So the EX01, Imperialdramon, and Imperialdramon actually doesn't have any jamming effects on them. So having him on your ESS will be actually handy, so that your both of them will have jamming, as well as you can finally attack freely with your XVmons, because this XVmon has jamming as his static effect. Okay, now we're moving on to our level 5s. First, we have, of course, the BTO3 Imperialdramon. This is a really staple card for Imperialdramon decks. So what he does is, first, his static effect is jamming, and his inheritable skill is, if this Digimon has Imperialdramon in its name, unsuspend it once per turn when attacking. So basically, your Imperialdramon will gain 2 attacks per turn if you have this Imperialdramon on your ESS. Next on our level 5 list, we have the 4 copies of the EX01 Imperialdramon. So this is another new card from EX01. What he does is, whenever we Digivolve and our Digimon card has 3 on its attribute in its Digivolution source, then we get to unsuspend Imperialdramon. So if, for example, we attack with the EX01 jamming XVmon and then Digivolve into Imperialdramon, we then get to unsuspend him, and again we can attack for the second time with this Imperialdramon, and with the XVmon's ESS giving this Imperialdramon jamming, this you won't have the fear of your Imperialdramon getting deleted with the security battle. So Imperialdramon, if before Imperialdramon archetypes had multiple attacks, now it has more support and more multiple attacks at the same time. Okay, now we're moving on to our hard hitters. We have our boss Digimons. We have Imperialdramon Dragon Mode. So we're running 4 copies of the BTO3 and 3 copies of the EX01. So what the BTO3 Imperialdramon Dragon Mode does is, whenever we are Digivolving from a Imperialdramon or Dino-Vmon, we can reduce our Digivolution cost by 2. So we only need 3 memory to Digivolve into Imperialdramon, as well as it has jamming, and whenever we Digivolve into this Imperialdramon, we can unsuspend all of our Digimon with jamming. As I've said before, we have tons of way to restand our Digimon on this type of deck, because Imperialdramon actually excels on restanding your Digimons. So Imperialdramon Dragon Mode puts a lot of pressure, because you can actually do at least 3 attacks if you have the right Digivolution source, and if you have actually 3 memory on your starting turn. And with that 3 attacks, you can do tons of pressure on your enemies. Okay, next on our level 6 list, we have the 3 copies of the EX01, as I've said before. So what this EX01 Imperialdramon does is, whenever we Digivolve into him, if our Digimon card has 3 on its attribute, then we get to unsuspend this Digimon and suspend one of our opponent's Digimon on the field. So this is quite important, because as I've said before, we now have the Stingmon, which gives us piercing, and if we get to suspend one of our opponent's boss Digimon, and suddenly we have an Imperialdramon Dragon Mode with 13k power and piercing. So yeah, I think this Imperialdramon Dragon Mode isn't as impactful as the BTO3, but it's still better than the secret rare from BTO3, the Green Imperialdramon one. That's why I chose to add 3 copies of the EX01 Imperialdramon rather than running the BTO3 Green Imperialdramon. So yeah, another Imperialdramon gives more consistency on this deck. Okay, now we're done with our Digimons. Let's talk about our Tamers. So we have the 3 copies of Davis Motomias, because he's just the best blue Tamer at the moment. Not only he gives you the generic Tamer skill, wherein you always start at 3 memory, but as well as a bonus, whenever we play Davis Motomiya, we can dig up to 3 cards on top of our deck, and we can get 1 green and 1 blue Digimon cards among them onto our hand. So since we are running like a hybrid green-blue, even though we only run 4 green cards on this deck, it still is a good thing that we can actually dig up those maybe level 5 or level 6 cards that we are missing. And we actually, it makes our Digivolution line consistent, basically. So Davis Motomiya is the tamer to use on this kind of deck. Okay, now we're moving on to our option cards. We have tons of option cards here. First, we have the 4 copies of Hammer Spark, because Hammer Spark is just a really staple option card on every blue deck. So having 4 Hammer Spark really does a great job on extending your plays, as well as doing some clutch security checks whenever your opponent have multiple attacks. Okay, now let's talk about the very controversial new option card for blue, which is Ice Wall. So Ice Wall is from EX01, and just for 1 memory cost, it has an effect wherein all of our opponent's Digimon gain when attacking, they lose 2 memory until the end of our opponent's turn. So basically, Ice Wall is just a straight up ridiculous defensive option card for blue, in which I can actually not run any blockers because of Ice Wall, since Ice Wall basically stops multiple attacks on our opponent's Digimons. As a bonus, whenever our opponent gets security check our Ice Wall, it's just basically a Hammer Spark from security check, so we gain 2 memory from it. So now with 4 Hammer Sparks and 3 Ice Wall on our deck list, we have a very high chance on just doing some clutch Hammer Sparks whenever our opponent attacks our security. So Ice Wall is just a really good addition in every blue decks. Now we're finally up to our last option card. We have the single copy of Blue Memory Boost. I only included the Blue Memory Boost because sometimes I need to dig up for some Digimon cards that I want as my Digivolution source, as well as if I am actually bricking on my rookies, which I tell you will always happen on your games. So Blue Memory Boost is just a really good turn 1 play so that you can dig up on those rookies that you are missing. So the Imperialdramon playstyle didn't really differ much from the BTO3 meta Imperialdramon back then, but now having more support cards like the new Stingmon, the new XVmon, Imperialdramon, and Imperialdramon really does a good job on just making this deck more consistent, as well as printing this new ridiculous option card for blue, which is Ice Wall, just increases the defensive capabilities of every blue decks. And that's it for today's video, guys. If you love the content or love the deck list, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I also have a Facebook page at SaberCline. And if you have any comments or suggestions regarding my deck build, if you want to add some Lobomons or maybe use the green Imperialdramon from BTO3, then feel free to comment them down below on the comment section. And that's it for today's video, guys. Till next time, peace out.